murdered the healthcare CEO on the streets of Manhattan. The suspect, Luigi Mangione.
Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Is there anything you can think of, looking back, that now kind of makes the light bulb go off on what he is alleged to have done?
He went to a shooting range in Thailand. When he had something, he had a very strong opinion about it. And I think he will let other people know.
Mangione became obsessed with a book about greed called Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
It would certainly bother me if I thought my book had played a role in assassinating an individual. But we have to speak the truth, and if that drives certain people to do one thing, I don't have any control over that.
Luigi probably has some mental health issues, so he's not going to think as a quote-unquote normal person.
There might be a not guilty by reason of insanity.
If somebody is a sociopath, that doesn't necessarily mean they're insane, does it?
No, but it goes a long way. Oh, he killed somebody. He's a murderer. No, he's a vigilante hero.
So these people are against gun violence, except in certain cases like CEOs.
Yeah, exactly.
That seems facially hypocritical.
I know. It does seem that way, right?
Out of Midtown, where a man has been shot on 54th Street.
Chilling images capturing the moment the gunman opens fire, killing the CEO of United Healthcare.
The NYPD releasing a pair of full-face photos of a person of interest.
26-year-old Luigi Mangione is being held in maximum custody level in a Pennsylvania prison.
It was a customer at a Pennsylvania McDonald's who first spotted Luigi Mangione less than a week after the Midtown killing.
Oh my God! I'm done. And insult the intelligence of the American people.
Mangione is facing 2 murder cases here, one state, one federal.
Accused CEO assassin Luigi Mangione is back in New York City. He was surrounded by cops armed with assault rifles and FBI agents.
He was on display for everyone to see in the biggest staged perp walk I've ever seen in my career.
This is one of the most baffling cases we've ever covered here at TMZ. A privileged young man who, on the surface, was smart, engaging, charming, becomes a killer. And unlike most targeted murders, he didn't have a personal connection to his victim. Rather, his victim was a symbol of what he says is corporate greed.
What's important and interesting is not what he did, it's the reaction of the American people to what he did, particularly young people, 18 to 29-year-olds. More people approved of his actions than disapproved. That isn't about Mangione, that isn't about the violence. That's about young people in America saying, we're sick of this. We're sick of corporate rule. We're sick of health insurance killing us for profit. We're sick of not being able to afford housing. We're sick of totally unaffordable college education.
Luigi, why did you kill Brian Thompson?
The problem is that what makes this guy compelling to the average American who thinks that he has a point is that he looks normal. It's not a crazy person. It's not a guy shouting on a subway. It's a guy with degrees from fancy schools who is handsome and, according to his friends, is articulate, well-spoken, generally a mensch until something happens.
What happened here on this New York street December 4th was a carefully crafted execution dating back well before August. In fact, on August 15th, Mangione had written in his diary, the details are finally coming together. I'm glad in a way that I procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about United Healthcare.
We've learned back in July Mangione spent a few nights at the Green Tortoise Hostel in San Francisco, where he partied with guests and told them his name was Mark Rosario from New Jersey. He even had a fake ID with that name. He also refused to use credit cards, paying instead with cold cash.
By then, Mangione had already ghosted his family and was essentially on the lam, masking his identity. On October 22nd, it was clear Mangione had set his sights on United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. He wrote in his diary that he intended to whack the CEO at an investor conference at the Hilton in Midtown Manhattan.
Fast forward to November 24th. Shortly after 10 p.m., Mangione stepped off a Greyhound bus at Manhattan's Port Authority bus terminal.
At some point that evening, he cased the Hilton Hotel that you can see here behind me. He knew the United Healthcare Investor Conference would be taking place here in a week and a half, and Thompson would be front and center.
Hi, I'm Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare. Our mission and values are focused on helping people live healthier lives and making the health system work better for everyone.
For the next 10 nights, he stayed at one of the city's hostels on the Upper West Side, again using a fake ID. He kept his face covered with a mask, except for one fleeting moment when he checked in, pulling it down to smile, flirting with a hostel employee.
On the morning of December 4th, Mangione leaves the hostel at around 5:30. At 5:41, about an hour before the shooting, he's captured on video pacing near the Hilton.
Shortly after that, Mangione is seen walking to a nearby Starbucks, where he gets a bottle of water and an energy bar before heading back to the hotel.
At 6:44, Thompson is walking up the street to the Hilton when Mangione opens fire, shooting him 3 times, killing him.
Mangione flees the scene, first on foot, then on a bike.
What Luigi did effectively in terms of a plan to escape is how he escaped in a very unconventional, almost nonchalant fashion, as opposed to what you typically might see in a Hollywood movie where somebody's screeching away in a fast car, and obviously that's an easy target for law enforcement to identify, but he got on a bicycle and biked away and blended in with the millions of people in Manhattan.
Back at the murder scene, police find 3 bullet shell casings with the words deny, defend, and depose printed on them. Words similar to the title of a book about the insurance industry called Delay, Deny, Defend.
These are sayings about insurance company practices of trying to find ways out of paying on claims that they are disputing.
Mangione is captured on various surveillance cameras until about 7:30 in the morning, when he's seen entering a Manhattan bus terminal but never exiting.
We have him in a taxi cab, and the taxi cab takes him up to 178th Street and Broadway, which, as we know, is a Port Authority bus center. Those buses are interstate buses. That's why we believe he may have left New York City.
Authorities released several surveillance photos of the suspect, and for the next 5 days, Mangione is MIA. Then, on December 9th, a McDonald's employee in Altoona, Pennsylvania, calls 911 to report a man in the restaurant matching the description of the suspect. Minutes later, police swarm in and arrest Mangione.
Responding officers questioned the suspect, who was acting suspiciously and was carrying multiple fraudulent IDs as well as a U.S. passport. Upon further investigation, officers recovered a firearm on his person as well as a suppressor, both consistent with the weapon used in the murder.
I think it's not the story that a lot of people imagined when we first saw this shooting happen. We thought that this was an outsider. We thought that this was someone that had been wronged personally by the system. In fact, he's the type of person that, frankly, could have ended up as the CEO of some healthcare or health tech company. Luigi had, ironically, all of the ingredients to succeed in this system, and yet he still turned against it.
Mangione is now in federal custody, facing charges that could bring the death penalty. but he might very well still be a free man if it hadn't been for a series of mistakes that helped authorities nab him. Is there anything you can think of, looking back, that now kind of makes the light bulb go off on what he is alleged to have done?
From what I can say, like, he went to a shooting range in Thailand. When he had something, he had a very strong opinion about it. And I think he will let other people know.
I felt like he felt his way was the right way to do stuff.
This isn't anything revolutionary, but it shows that even early on, the class of 2016 was challenging the world around it. Having great ideas, however, isn't enough to innovate.
There is no doubt Luigi Mangione is a smart guy, well-educated, well-spoken, voracious reader. But for a smart guy, he made some rookie mistakes that led to his capture. I found it astonishing that he really kept much of his face covered while he was in New York before the murder for 10 days. And then he pulls his mask down to flirt with a woman. It stunned me that he did that.
One of the things we definitely have to take into consideration is that Luigi probably had some mental health issues, right? So he's not going to think as a quote-unquote normal person. So in that moment, when he decided to reveal his face, it seems completely illogical to somebody who's sane, to somebody who's rational, to somebody who doesn't have any mental health issues. But if you do, then you do end up doing things that seem counterintuitive or irrational.
Another thing that really surprises me is that if he really was trying to go undetected, why would you sit in the McDonald's?
It makes absolutely no sense, which it does suggest to me that there was a part of him that wanted recognition for this deed that he committed. I don't think Luigi particularly wants to spend the rest of his life in prison. I do think, however, that there was a part of him and his ego that did want to take credit or get credit or be acknowledged for this act, for this deed that he did, that he felt was a good deed. He felt he did some kind of a public service by murdering his victim. And so I do think he wanted recognition for it.
Mistakes aside, there were months of preparations before the shooting, starting early last year when Mangione left his home in Hawaii and set off on a trip meandering around Asia.
I'm Paul, and I met Luigi on vacation in Thailand at the end of March, and we traveled together for 1.5 weeks on a road trip to Bangkok.
And I'm Max. I met Luigi also in Thailand on vacation.
Is there anything you can think of, looking back, that now kind of makes the light bulb go off on what he is alleged to have done?
From what I can say, like, he went to a shooting range in Thailand. That's something that we can tell. Like, the day we went to the beach, he was at the shooting range before that.
Tell me what he said about it.
It was expensive. That's what he told us.
He talked to you about a book by an author in India. Did he talk about that?
He told us, like, he financed the book and bought like 400 copies of it, which is like pretty abnormal to do that, but he bought them online, so like he more like supported the author. And he told us like that he printed a copy of the book, made his annotations on the book, and met the guy in India. We obviously like were like, why are you buying 400 books? Who does that?
We like asked him how much he spent on it because like it's crazy, and he said he wanted to support this guy. He wanted to support this guy because he wanted to give him feedback, and this guy was getting in contact with him.
And he flew to India to meet this author?
Yes,
he did.
Yes.
We confirm Mangione did go to Mumbai back in May and met with an author named Jash Dalani. Delaney wrote a book called Hit Reverse, New Ideas from Old Books. Here's a passage. Greed powers the adventurer. He is egotistical, solitary, vain, and has a monstrous appetite for glory. God help the ungreedy.
We contacted Delaney. He would only confirm he met with Mangione for about an hour, but wouldn't get specific.
For a young guy to go to an author and not only buy a bunch of his books and go meet him, but then tell him how he would improve the book, that feels like an arrogant thing to do. Was Luigi an arrogant guy?
You might say so. So I don't know how to really feel about calling him arrogant. He was not arrogant with us, but I felt like he felt his way was the right way to do stuff.
When he had something, he had a very strong opinion about it, and I think he will let other people know then.
We also learned Mangione became obsessed with a book about greed called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Seems to me your book aligns with the notion of corporate greed and why people are so angry. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair, but we've all kind of bought into that the goal of corporations is to maximize short-term profits, regardless of the social and environmental cost. But it is very much driven by greed, and today they're seeing that Elon Musk just broke the $400 billion barrier. Who needs that kind of money?
Does it worry you that your book is so powerful that it could drive someone to kill?
It would certainly bother me if I thought my book had played a role in him assassinating an individual. I certainly in no way condone violence, but I think that we have to speak the truth, and if that drives certain people to do one thing or certain people to do another thing, I don't have any control over that.
So why would such a privileged, wealthy young man be so obsessed and enraged by corporate greed? And what caused him to channel that anger into murder?
Let's not just round up all the CEOs and shoot them because they'll just be replaced by new CEOs. It's not going to fix the system.
Well, that's not the reason that you want to avoid shooting somebody. You want to avoid shooting somebody because
first of all, we
murder.
want to avoid shooting someone because we do not want to condone murder throughout widespread society.
Anyway, yeah, 10 seems kind of, basic. So we also have a blindfold.
It's widely assumed Mangione killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson because of his own personal frustration with the healthcare system. But that's simply not the case.
Most times when somebody kills like this, it's because there is a personal relationship, there is a vendetta, there's a hatred for a group of people. In Luigi's case, this is unique, that he had this fixation on corporate America.
And completely out of touch and insult the intelligence of the American people. It's not an experience.
Fact is, somewhere along the way, Mangione became enraged over corporate greed. Healthcare was just a symbol of it, because as he wrote in his diary, it checks all boxes.
It's because everybody has a story. Either you've been impacted, you've had a problem getting coverage, or you certainly know someone who has. And so we're all within a degree of separation from the problems of this system. And frankly, nobody's happy.
So Luigi Mangione's shooting is not just about healthcare. It is about crimes against humanity that are happening at the highest level in boardrooms.
There's no question that the country is sick of corporate rule, and we do live under corporate rule. We now have complete corruption in America. Everyone hates what's going on in the country, which is corporations lording over all of us.
Listen, I get it. CEOs have stressful jobs, but can anybody tell me in what world it makes sense to pay them 3,700 times more than the people who are actually doing the work that makes them the money?
I mean, there is a deep dissatisfaction with institutions in this country. And we see that on every side of the political debate. It's a rare thing that, I mean, you see it in the 1960s a little bit where people get violent, but, you know, that was because they were dissatisfied with the Vietnam War or something. It's a new thing or kind of a recent thing that people respond to a dissatisfaction with institutions with violence.
I think corporate greed is something that young people are incredibly outraged over. I mean, you have to consider that, especially when you look at millennials and Gen Z. These are generations that, for the first time in many generations, are growing up worse off than their parents. They are struggling financially. Wealth disparity is skyrocketing. And they're looking around, and they're seeing billionaires, they're seeing rich people, and they're seeing these CEOs make off like bandits. And so I think there is a lot of justified anger at the inequality in the system right now.
I don't understand that, because when I was growing up, there may not have been billionaires, but there were Rockefellers, and they were the equivalent of billionaires in my world. And that became aspirational, not outrageous. What changed?
It wasn't quite as extreme as somebody like Elon Musk, right? Jeff Bezos. We're talking about people that have amassed a level of wealth that is quite incomprehensible, I think, to a lot of people. I think also the dynamics of things changed. Back in that day, Harvey, you didn't have access to social media. You weren't being bombarded with other people's lives 24/7. I think there's a hopelessness in the system where a lot of people feel that no matter how hard they work, the system is stacked against them.
It's also interesting that someone gave up a promising life to make a valid point in this country against corporate greed.
Hey there, Luigi, while I can't condone the violence, I know change is gonna come, and we won't all sit here in silence anymore.
So what are they asking for? I didn't see any solution from Luigi.
We do not want, every single person, get all this. Let's not just round up all the CEOs and shoot them because they'll just be replaced by new CEOs. It's not going to fix the system.
Well, that's not the reason that you want to avoid shooting somebody. You want to avoid shooting somebody because
first of all,
it's murder.
We want to avoid shooting someone because we do not want to condone murder throughout widespread society. If people felt represented by elected officials, they wouldn't feel like they have to work outside the system.
Luigi Mangione is a hero. Honestly, he did what a lot of people say they would do, but he did it.
Change is not going to come through the barrel of a gun. Change is only going to come when we sort of free up the politicians to do right by the people and not be beholden to lobbyists.
Luigi Mangione, this whole corporate capitalist takedown is just, oh my God.
So number one answer is get money out of politics. As long as they take legalized bribes, all of our politicians will serve corporations who buy them lock, stock, and barrel. And now the right-wing populists agree, the left-wing populists agree, over 90% of the country agrees. But our politicians will not do it because they got in power through this intense corruption.
It's an oligarchy. We live in an oligarchy. Stop defending the people who would let you die if it lines their pockets.
The danger in the country is people are pissed. They're super mad. You don't get to a situation where someone does an assassination and half the country cheers unless you're in a super dangerous place.
Do you know how many times I've cried with and for patients in the 10 years I've been doing my job because they couldn't receive the care that they need? Hell, I'll see you in hell, Brian.
There might be a not guilty by reason of insanity.
If somebody is a sociopath, that doesn't necessarily mean they're insane, does it?
No, but it goes a long way.
RJ, in hindsight now, is there anything about Luigi that makes you say, oh, okay, I could believe that he did this? Is there anything looking back?
The exact opposite
is completely unimaginable. You know, we cooked meals together, we would go do workouts together. He was a great leader of our conversations at book club. He was the kind of person that was, you know, positive. He was the kind of person you looked forward to spending time with and you were grateful to have in your life. He was the exact opposite extreme of somebody that would be an assassin.
On the surface, Mangione lived a charmed life. His family was wealthy, owned 2 country clubs and 9 nursing homes. He was the valedictorian at his elite private all-boys school, graduated from an Ivy League college, then got a job in tech. But there was trouble lurking underneath, both physical and mental. He had chronic back issues, which required surgery in 2023. He suffered from brain fog and sleep deprivation.
And several sources we spoke to told us Luigi Mangione definitely had a dark side, possibly stemming from mental illness. Someone at the private school he went to said he had odd episodes in high school and would lash out at people at times. Another person close to him said Luigi would frequently tell friends that he didn't feel emotion the way other people do. He once got into an argument with his girlfriend and was reflecting on how he hurt her feelings and said he just didn't feel any emotion over it.
In the months before the shooting, Mangione ghosted his family and friends as his anger with corporate greed festered.
Do you have any sense of what might have led to him at that point distancing himself from his family and friends?
There was a part of the conversation where he said that the people around him were not on his wavelength, and he was eager for a community of like-minded people, and that was one of the reasons why he wanted to talk to me, because he felt that I was a kindred spirit. And he just said that the people around him, he couldn't really talk to them because, like he said, that they were on a different wavelength.
As for Mangione's family, they've been radio silent. The reason? We're told they knew something was amiss, possibly for years.
Mangione had ghosted his family. His mom had not heard from him for 140 days.
Last November, after Mangione had been off the grid for months, his mother filed a missing persons report in San Francisco where she believed he was living. When a photo of the suspect in the CEO shooting was released, a San Francisco detective noticed a striking resemblance and reached out to her.
They had a conversation where she didn't indicate that it was her son in the photograph, but she said it might be something that she could see him doing.
I think that is very, very revealing for a mother to respond like that. I mean, not that as a parent you should unconditionally protect your child if they've committed a heinous crime. I can't sit here and diagnose him, but, you know, based on everything that we know so far, it's highly likely that he does suffer some kind of mental disorders, and she knew that. And in that sense, she kind of just threw him under the bus.
So now, Luigi Mangione is in the fight of his life, literally. He faces multiple state and federal charges. Maximum penalty on the federal charges, death.
He's a young man, and he is being treated like a human ping pong ball between 2 warring jurisdictions here.
Before she was hired, Mangione's attorney, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, signaled what she believed was his best defense.
There might be a not guilty by reason of insanity defense that they're going to be thinking about, because the evidence is going to be so overwhelming that he did what he did.
But proving that could be an uphill battle.
My name is George Parnham. I represented Andrea Yates, who was charged with the deaths of her 5 children by drowning. She was acquitted by reason of insanity.
Somebody like Luigi might think what he is doing is right and even righteous, but that doesn't mean he doesn't know the difference between right and wrong.
That is correct, and it's obviously 2 different standards. But in Luigi's situation, if he truly believed that he was doing the right thing, and that can be proven, then that's the defense of insanity.
If there's any evidence to show that he tried to do things to, quote-unquote get away, then that would establish that he knew what he was doing was wrong, was a crime, was criminal, and then the insanity defense no longer works.
If somebody is a sociopath, that doesn't necessarily mean they're insane, does it?
No, but it goes a long way.
I would imagine a jury would think that it's hard to kind of go through life being successful and being sane, and also he doesn't look like a crazy person. He's had all the privileges in the world, and he has an ideology that is kind of sick and perverted, and ended up with a guy in Midtown Manhattan getting shot in the back.
Mistake define his entire life.
These people are against gun violence, except in certain cases like CEOs.
Yeah, exactly, right? It doesn't make any sense.
That seems facially hypocritical.
I know. It does seem that way, right?
What do you guys think of Luigi Mangione?
Woo! Oh, zoom in.
Look at that.
Oh, he's so hot.
Luigi, hope your cell is clean. And I know that if it wasn't clean, I would clean it for you while you do self-care.
The support for him almost feels biblical to me. In a way, they're saying this is an eye for an eye.
That's what they're saying, but it was a weird moment where I saw a video from Boston, I think, and it was a concert of some sort. And they were showing images of Luigi behind all these kids, like, pumping their fists and dancing. And there's a moment that you have to stop and say, how did we get to this point, and what are these people trying to say? Because a lot of people are disaffected with the system, but you tend not to celebrate murderers. I mean, it's a bridge too far.
Luigi represents the mindset that we've all had, either at one point or another, or our entire adult lives in America. He embodies everything that we've been thinking, everything that we've been wanting to do. He represents that mindset.
We have seen a shocking and appalling celebration of cold-blooded murder. Social media has erupted with praise for this cowardly attack. People ghoulishly plastered posters threatening the other CEOs, with an X over Mr. Thompson's picture, as though he was some sort of a sick trophy.
In all my years of reporting, I don't remember anybody who was viewed as a folk hero for an execution. I can't think of anybody. How does that land with you?
Well, I find it appalling, and I agree with you. Harvey, this murder took place on a Wednesday in the 6 a.m. hour. The following Wednesday, in the 6 a.m. hour, I was on that block, not because of any morbid curiosity, but I was walking to my SiriusXM radio studio, as I often do. And what struck me was the absence of any sign of what had transpired. What did I expect to see? How about some flowers? I can't remember a case where someone is executed in cold blood and there isn't some public outpouring for the decedent, for the victim. And to the contrary, instead, you've got wanted posters nearby for other CEOs, and there was also a poster of the alleged shooter treating him like he's a saint. It's completely ass backwards.
They charged Luigi Mangione with an act of terrorism, and I'm trying to figure out who he terrorized. I feel fine.
Why does America's sweetheart Luigi not have the biggest, most insane record-setting GoFundMe account set up for his legal fees?
I do think it is the very notion that he's kind of seen as this class traitor, where it's like, hey, you had everything and yet you turned on it. That almost makes people stand him more. And I think it makes him even more of a compelling figure to this mass of people, young people, that are justifiably outraged at how broken the system is.
This man has done evil things, and then something evil happened to him. In all reality, let's just call it karma and wrap it up.
The rich! Eat the rich!
These are people that don't love guns. They're very concerned about ghost guns, things you can print on 3D printers, and they oppose the death penalty. But right now, they seem to be okay with guns and okay with the death penalty, provided the death penalty doesn't go through legal means of the judicial system. That is what's happening, and I think it's really, really disconcerting that this is the way people are thinking these days.
So then, these people are against gun violence, except in certain cases like CEOs.
Yeah, exactly, right? It doesn't make any sense.
That seems facially hypocritical.
I know. It does seem that way, right?
Yeah, it is that way.
But here's the thing, they're for gun control because they don't want innocent people shot. But they don't view someone like Brian Thompson as innocent. They view him as somebody who has blood on his hands.
Luigi Mangione, is he a villain or is he a hero?
He's a hero. Sometimes you gotta be the villain to be the hero.
He's the man. I'm Italian. All power to the people. Say Luigi.
How relevant is it that Luigi is a good-looking guy?
I would like to say it's unfortunately very relevant, but I shouldn't say unfortunately because we pretend as if this is some kind of new phenomenon. It's relevant that John F. Kennedy was a handsome guy and was elected president. I mean, there's always a benefit to being good-looking. As Chris Rock said on SNL, if he looked like Jonah Hill, we wouldn't have the same reaction. It'd probably be forgotten about pretty quickly.
Smash or pass, Luigi Mangione. Oh, smash. Smash and smash again.
Okay. Luigi is hot. He really is. And he's innocent, too.
He's so hot. Him walking around in the orange jumpsuit, like with a bunch of cops surrounding him, he cares about the injustice in the world. So hot.
I think from my seat, and especially when you look at social media, I think his looks are 80% for a lot of people in this country.
Could be. I mean, we're all familiar with the images at the hostel. Of course, the story that was told is that he dropped his mask in some type of a flirtatious gesture. So that kind of fed this narrative as well, that he's not only a good-looking guy, but maybe to some extent he's a player. And then came the back of the taxi picture where you got an even clearer look at him, and he's clearly a good-looking guy. And I think in the world in which we live, which is click-driven, that has fueled this story.
So many women and so many men are going nuts over how good-looking this killer is, and there's a huge wave of horny washing over us right now.
So if young people are as high-minded as you say and outraged on principle, if Luigi were ugly, would there be the same reaction?
Listen, I get it. Again, because he is a handsome, seemingly charismatic young man, of course he's going to have a level of fandom around him that he wouldn't have if he was more on the margins of society, if he was a more marginalized person. We have had marginalized people, try to commit acts, not exactly shooting a healthcare CEO, but take action, and they're written off. So I agree with you. It is very superficial. We live in a very superficial world.
Luigi, why did you kill Brian Thompson?
If he is tried federally and the death penalty is on the table, do you think a jury would cut him a break because he's good looking and you can't juxtapose that with killing somebody? That seems to be what our culture is like.
Well, if you're famous or if you're good looking, it definitely gives you a leg up as a defendant in our court systems. Ultimately, it's going to come down to the law, and if the prosecution can and most likely will establish that he in fact is the person who perpetrated this crime beyond a reasonable doubt, well, then they're going to have to convict.
They can absolutely reach a verdict for all the wrong legal reasons and reach a verdict on moral grounds or other grounds that they believe are important, and they can't be questioned about it.
So in regards to this Luigi Mangione case, I got something to say to all the people that are trying to defend him. This is not the right way. I understand you want change, but this is not the right way.
It seems there's a mountain of evidence proving Mangione executed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. If his lawyer can't prove insanity, then what's left?
As Luigi stands here today or sits here today, he is presumed innocent. That means unless and until the government can prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, having ticked and tied every single aspect of the investigation perfectly, he is still presumed innocent. The government has to get it right every single time. And not just right, they got to get it perfect.
A lot has been made of the now infamous perp walk, with a gaggle of state and federal authorities, even the New York City mayor encircling Mangione in a unique spectacle, one that drew the ire of his lawyer.
He was on display for everyone to see in the biggest staged perp walk I've ever seen in my career.
If there's some communication, cell phone communication, text messages, emails, to suggest that that was coordinated, that the government, the prosecution actually knew that they were going to engage in that sort of perp walk with these paramilitary outfitted individuals with high-powered assault rifles surrounding this guy, now you have a very ripe motion to dismiss for extraordinary governmental misconduct, to wit, attempting to improperly or unduly influence potential jurors.
And the wild card. Mangione has massive support, especially among young people. And there's something called jury nullification, where a jury ignores the law and does what it feels is right or righteous. So the question, will that fly here?
Yeah, they hold all the power in their hands, and they, regardless of the law and all the evidence proves that they are guilty, and even though they feel that he is guilty, they can nullify that and still render a non-guilty verdict. And at that point in time, Harvey, that's it. The jury has spoken.
They can absolutely reach a verdict for all the wrong legal reasons and reach a verdict on moral grounds or other grounds that they believe are important, and they can't be questioned about it.
Mangione will sit in jail until his trial begins, and that's likely going to take months, possibly as long as a year. The question, will the trial be people versus Mangione or people versus corporate greed? My bet is on both.